All right, people. Me again, Mr. B. And today we want to spend some time talking about an issue that has arisen over the past couple of weeks. In fact, this is not a new issue, but one that has been with us for a particularly long time. And today we want to take a little stab at it, um, see how we can address some of these problems by just, first of all, to inform the public and see if we can generate some discussion that can possibly change the trajectory. Now, I'm talking about this recent position declared by our Honorable Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, with respect to the role of the police and its citizenry. Now, context. Jamaica has had a major issue with crime, particularly murders, over the last, I would say, the last 35 to 40 years. In fact, when you take a look at the numbers, Jamaica murders on average in excess of 11 to 1200 of its citizens per year. Okay, and this is a country that is not at war. So we want to, again, context is everything. And so from that standpoint, it tells you that we have a major crime problem. The second aspect of that is the role the police played. Now, the police has always been drawn and quartered for its operating policies. And I shared this topic on Facebook. Would have been yesterday, which says Jamaica has for the last 45 years been immersed in a mire of murder and mayhem, with more than 40,000 Jamaicans having lost their lives over the period. The situation is now so bad that a majority of Jamaicans have now become completely desensitized towards the unending trail of death and destruction. In the course of all of this, though, the police have now joined the fray, taking on the role of judge, jury, and executioner. Now, the Gleaner headline yesterday pointed to it provided a glimpse into the deepening state of the hopelessness that exists, with 6 additional Jamaicans who were shot dead by the police on Monday. When you add that 6 to the numbers reported last week, you're looking at 84 Jamaicans that have been killed by the police since the beginning of the year. Typically, Jamaica have a police to population kill ratio of just about 1 per 1,000. And so in other words, typically over a 12-month period, let me correct that, typically over a 12-month period, the Jamaican police is responsible for the deaths of just about 100 of its citizens. At the rate that we are going, though, considering that we are now just a week and change into April, you are looking at just about 2.5 times that number that the country normally take. Now, we typically kill 100 people. At the rate at which we're going, we're looking at about 250 Jamaicans that would have been killed by the police. But if we continue at the rate that they are going now, again, yeah, you want to, for additional context, if we come back to the issue here, Jamaica is not a safe space, right? More recently, the government appointed a new commissioner of police and seemed featured there, and the commissioner has issued a statement, and you can see that in the thing here. It says commissioner issues stern warning to gangsters, and essentially what the commissioner has, the new commissioner, is basically saying is he's not taking a check with the criminal, and he shouldn't. But the problem that we are having in Jamaica is, for a small country, Jamaica's population is just about 2.8 million people living on the island. And when you have the kind of murder rates, on an average, some 1,300 murders committed per year, we have managed to trim that down a little bit to just about, just a little over 1,100 on an annual basis. And that's a good going. The idea is to see that drop, way below the 1,000 mark. But what we seem to be relying on is the police, using the police to literally eliminate gang members, etc. Now, there is most Jamaicans will say to you, boy, I mean, I have no problem if the policeman will kill bad man. And to be quite honest with you, me not have no problem with that neither, right? If gunman take on the police and open fire upon the police have a right to shoot back. There's no question about that. I mean, I have no argument with that, right? But then one of the things we want to take a look at, which is a deeper argument, is the following. Keep in mind, the murder weapon of choice among Jamaican criminals is the gun. We don't make gun in Jamaica. So guns are being imported left, right, and center into the island. My sense is, how do we nix that? If the police comes into contact with gang members who are toting guns, one of the things you want to do is use your intelligence, is to develop intelligence, not only to find the criminals, but we want to find out where these guns are coming from. These criminals get these guns from somebody, them don't just materialize. So my thinking is, if your forte is that you're just going to kill criminals, you're not really solving your gun problem, because maybe what we want to find out is, and we want to apprehend, is the person or persons who are responsible for the trafficking of firearms and the redistribution throughout the socio-economic space that is Jamaica, right? I believe that there is, the gun business in Jamaica is a big business, big business. And from the criminal element standpoint, having a gun raises the stature of the criminal, and it drives the fear. So me would think that what we want to be doing is to grab these criminals where you can. So rather than take a step that say we will eliminate the criminal, why don't we take a second look and see how we can address this thing? Now, I looked up a little chart here which says Jamaica ranks 8th out of 160 countries in terms of the rate with which the police kill people. The search that I did is looking at the countries with the highest rates of police killings relative to population. Now, when you consider that Jamaica has a population just under 3 million, 2.8 million, and police is killing on an average 100 to 200 people a year, it puts us at number 8 on the charts. And we're talking about we're run in concert with people like Brazil, the Philippines. Of course, Brazil is number 1, Venezuela number 2, and US is number 3, Venezuela 4, Mexico, South Africa, and Nigeria, and then right below that is Jamaica. Right? Now, the big problem with that is the extrajudicial killing. And so we remember in 2016, 2017, when the current prime minister, when he was competing for Jamaica House, he issued a call to Jamaicans that if you vote for the PNP, they will continue murder you, thing, right? You may not be around after that because of the murder rates with in Jamaica relative to the PNP government. Now, of course, the JLP won the election the following year, and they have been in office now for running into 10 years, nine years, heading into 10. And the issue was when we taking the argument that the prime minister made, or at the time he was the opposition leader and is challenging for the seat, he issued that charge. At that time, the murder rates in Jamaica was just a little shy of 1,100 per year. Phenomenal amount of people that died. In the period that the JLP has been government, more than 17, what is it? The murder rates under the current administration is averaging some 1,325 Jamaicans murdered over the period. That's just about 12,000 people murdered over the 9-year period that the JLP has been in office. So technically, in terms of the murder rates, the JLP has performed very, very badly relative to its promise. And so we are aware that an election is in the offing anytime soon. The constitutionally due in September, and so a lot has been spent on the police force. Certainly by this administration, looking at the budget and the allocations to Ministry of National Security, and specifically to the police force. Police force received somewhere in the region of about $40 billion of the budget, right? To provide them with basically more of the same: gun, fast car, motorbike, ballistic vests and helmets, and so on. And so the question that arises is, what different are we doing as a country to stem the bloodletting in the country in the first instance? And secondly, is the current approach by the police force realizing any different results than had been delivered in the 5 decades since, right? Or 4 or 5 decades. We started noticing the drift in murders in Jamaica in the mid 1970s, and of course when that struck 300 Jamaicans murdered around 1974-75, it was a cause for concern. Over the years, that has steadily climbed. By 1979-80, when we had the landmark election, we had murdered some 898, just under 900 Jamaicans in that year. And so what we did is that we closeted this under the umbrella, the label, as political violence, which is a bullshit label if you ask me, because killing somebody, murdering people is a crime. There's no particular difference in terms of murder for political purposes or otherwise. Is murder. The problem is we have never been able to contain this thing. And so over the period of the 1970s to date, the country has seen the formation of within the police force of multiple crack squads whose job is to address the crime problems within the island. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what level of success has these squads had on the crime issue over the years? We have formed more than 20 crack squads, right? within the police force over the years, and none of these squads have done anything to address or to cauterize the bloodletting in the country. We start out with eradication squad, and the whole idea there's a huge fanfare, and I'm not singling out any particular political side, because the two sides guilty, just as guilty. They are literally have very little capacity to fix the murder problem that Jamaica has. And my sense is, using this police elimination approach is a horse that have already bolted out of the gates, and that horse having provided extremely little, if any, results whatsoever. In fact, when you look at the stats, what it tells you is that every time that the police uses this kind of approach, goes out there, eliminates members of the population, within a few months the situation gets back to where it was, and in fact gets higher. The body count, remember in the 1970s, when we first saw this scourge coming through, and we started out with all of these different crack squads, the reality is that they did nothing. Nothing changed. What we found was that the situation only became more and more inflamed. Now, so of course, the crack squad approach to eliminating criminals, apart from anything else, it is as it says, an extrajudicial measure. Why? The police will tell you, we arrest these guys, you carry them, go to the thing and lock them up, and within a couple of days, them get bail, and then they're back on the streets. They eliminate witnesses and so on, which essentially is a weakness within our own justice system. And so what the police is now doing, and it is clear based on the mandate that the government has provided to the police, and the police commissioner himself in this, let me put up the little thing here, when the warning that the commissioner has issued to criminals is essentially where I says, we're come forward. The current administration boasts high levels of technology that is being utilized by the police force, and we as citizens of the country are happy to hear that. But what has not changed is that it seems as if we're using the technology to find people and to murder them, because under the law and under the constitution of the country, every person has a right to a fair trial. And so if the system is unable to provide that, then what are we? Our reality is that the police, by virtue of the approaches that are being taken, right? By virtue of the approaches, the police is essentially eliminating members of the population, right? And we may argue, because people who are impacted by the violence will say to you, but them are killed criminals. How do you know that these are criminals? How do you know? Because unless somebody is arrested, charged, brought before the courts, a charge is leveled against them for their participation in criminal activity. Until they are convicted of that crime, that accusation, you can't really say that we're killed criminals. How do we know? And so my thing is the transparency, because guess what? The one thing that I have observed with the whole business of crime and violence is that if men are out there killing other members of the population committing these crimes, we need to grab onto them. We need to hold on to them. Yeah, if them take on it and challenge the police with a firefight, and that's what you have to do, defend yourself thing. But to go out there, use the technology as is being boasted, we can find one person in response to my post on Facebook said the police know every criminal there. Well, I've heard that argument already. I'm a senior police officer when I lived in Jamaica made that point that the police know where to find every criminal. So go find them, right? The problem that the police is claiming is that when you bring them before the courts, right? Or you bring them in to take them in front of the courts, the problem that the police is having is that the case collapse, them get bail, and so them back out on the street to do the same thing, right? Now, as Miss one of my guests on Facebook is asking, if the police not challenged in shootouts, and we're not arguing against that. I stated at the beginning of this stream that if people take on the police in a firefight, the police must defend themselves. But when we have a situation where we are seeing this mushrooming number of Jamaicans being killed. Now remember, I have lived in Jamaica for the better part of more than 50 years of my life. I have family who still live in Jamaica, and I go there very, very often still. I was there just a couple of days ago. And what I will say to you is this. The purpose of policing is to provide for safety. If you give the police this blank check to go and kill criminals, it's only a matter of time before they are going to cash that check against their, it becomes no personal. So the policeman have an issue with the next man out on the street, and you brush him under the guise that he is a criminal. Or the other side of it here, and I made a comment in my thing, that the thing about, what the public in Jamaica is doing is saying to the police, waste them. If them challenge you, waste them. If them are criminal, waste them. But how do you know that these people are criminals? How do we know that every shootout that is reported by the police is an actual shootout? There was a case last year where the police went into Rockford and killed 3 men in a quote-unquote shootout, right? So the police goes into Rockford and they kill 3 men. Here's a problem. When they looked at some security cameras that was around the place, the camera showed that there was no shootout. The police literally go into the community, pull out the man them, brush them away. There was a case a couple of weeks ago. I was in Jamaica when this happened, where the police apparently they've been after this guy in St. Thomas for a while, and each time that they arrest him, he gets bail or they can't prove their case against him. And so what they eventually did is that they go over to him yard early one, it must have been a Monday morning, and they went, took him out of his house, and take him around beside the side of the house and brush him away. Right? Now, this is the reality of the place that we live in, right? The reality is that we have a crime problem. But we need to recognize that our police, we draw the police from the same community that the criminals come from. And so the mentality is not any different. And if we establish a situation where we give one set of our population a blank check to kill others, right? We're not any better then than the problem that we're trying to resolve. So when we say that because there is a crime problem, you're giving the police the blank check to go and basically waste all of them, according to John Public. The thing about wasting lives is that it becomes a habit. And so when a police or a group of policemen find that they are able to do this thing constantly and it gets treated as a police in a firefight, then you have the fabrications, as was the issue with the Rockford case a couple of months ago, right? Unfettered by procedure and buoyed by public responses such as that, the police is becoming a purveyor of the very thing that we are fighting against. The police are becoming murderers themselves. The only difference is that they are murdering people with the permission that the government and the people of the country has given them by these gleeful responses about wasting people, right? Under the law, the objective has to be that we try to bring these people in, because when we get to the point where our police are able to eliminate people, right? Once we get to that point where the police can do that, it's only a matter of time that it becomes more personal and then we can't control it. The argument I made the point earlier, yes, that the police know where all the criminals are, right? But the police will tell you that we would like to go for them and pick them up. But the nature of our practice or the way we practice politics in Jamaica makes that almost impossible. Because the minute the police goes into a particular community, you see the MP, we saw it a couple of months ago when we down in a Spanish town. And so it hampers the police. So Jamaica is in this space that is almost paradoxical, because on the one hand, a lot of these politicians have intertwined relationships with the criminality. There was a time when we needed these garrison communities, and the Dons are the head of the garrisons. And so the politicians and them in a bed together, and it still is happening. It's just that today, to a large portion of these garrisons and these Dons don't really need the politician in the way that they needed them in the 70s and the 1980s, because other things happening and them make a whole heap of money. Plus, you know, we see where some of these Dons and criminal elements are so embedded in the system. They're them into contracts with the government for the street cleaning, road works, and all them sort of thing. And so what the police is saying to me is, Mr. B, we know, but we can't lock them up because it threatens them as police in terms of them job. But the answer to that is not to go and kill people, because I am pretty certain, and I can speak to that from personal experience, that the police, not everybody that the police kill a criminal. I remember the case with Britain, the Britain shooting where they killed those 7 young men. I lived in Britain, and everything about that shooting tells me that the police murdered those guys. Police went in the house, leaned them up against the wall, and shot them in the back of their head. Right? But Jamaica people, how the information leaked out, the very morning that the shooting happened, one of the police officer, Mr. Adams, I think it was on the radio on the 7 o'clock news that morning, saying that these guys were gunmen, they were criminals, that one of the firearms that they took from the guys was a firearm that was used to kill somebody on the weekend. No, ballistics department not open until 9 o'clock a morning time, right? And if somebody shoots somebody on Friday or Saturday, and the police even hold that gun, that ballistics test is not done by you can't, without conducting a full ballistics examination of the weapon, you can't make that kind of claim. But Jamaica people buy this kind of thing because I guess most people are frightened by the criminality. But what we need to be frightened of is the state of affairs in Jamaica that breeds these criminals. Because I can promise you this, right? I can promise you this. No amount of killing that we do is going to stop these guys from killing each other or killing other Jamaicans. What we need to do is to recognize we need to take the time out. We've been doing the same thing for 45 years, right? We've been doing the very same thing. We form a crack squad, we get a policeman and big gun, and the boy them just get bigger gun, right? There are people who are bringing guns into this country. No lick of barefoot man. No friars can't bring even a single round of ammunition across the ports, the airport, or any wharf in Jamaica without it have to go through the customs setup. So the people who are bringing guns, these are people who are entrenched in the system, who have links, connections, people with power and authority, and they are involved in these activities. So this whole idea that we're gonna kill off the criminal them is a bullshit argument, because that's not what you want. What we need to do is we need to go out there and find the real criminals. The real criminals are the ones who are providing these guns, right? Because the gun is responsible, is a weapon of choice by these criminals. It is used in more than 80% of the murders, right? And so what we have to start look at, as somebody asking, what are the solutions? So listen, I'm as a an activist and a blogger, and I guide my discussions with research and having lived and had the experience. I am making these representations. The issue is that we need, first of all, we have to look at the society that we have created over the years, right? Look at the Jamaica and decide what kind of Jamaica we want. Because if we have a country where the majority of our kids are getting proper schooling, so all the schools are provided with the same level of resources, better teachers, so we can turn out better students. What we need to do is to change the status quo within the Jamaican, the structure of the Jamaican society. It can't be a them versus us or us versus them kind of situation. We need to basically look at developing a level of equity within the country. When people are properly educated, an educated person is less likely to become involved in this kind of criminal violence, right? A better educated population means that you're able to attract better investments into the country, which means better investments will redound to the provision of better jobs, better paying jobs, right? My personal experience is that a lot of these youngsters who are involved in these gun running and criminal activities don't necessarily want to be doing that for the little time that they have, because of course what it does, your timeline short as a criminal. If they are able to find a way, a decent paying job, by the system providing them with the tools that will allow them to pick up those jobs, that's how we change the society. We've been doing this thing for a very, very long time, where we give the police gun and we tell them, go out there and kill off the criminal. And people out there who believe that that is the solution, and I'm saying to you, it isn't, right? What we need to do, yeah, we need to beef up the police. Yes, we need to provide them with the material and equipment to do a better job, but we also need to give them better training, right? Remember, arresting somebody is just the beginning. So somebody asking how we deal with a criminal activity. So the first thing what we need to do is we need to develop a cadre of investigators who, when you arrest somebody, or if them going to build a case against an individual, that they have properly investigated this thing, so that when you charge somebody, when you arrest them and charge them for a crime, you have all of the information there, so that the matter can go through the court system, and the director or the prosecution can prosecute the case and do it in a timely manner. So what we need to do is to change our approach to police investigation, right? Spend the money training investigators. You can bring brighter people into the police force, which is happening now too, right? But let's get a cadre of investigators, so that when them investigate a case, we find a man and we know this man is involved in trafficking guns, or he is a robber, thief, murderer. When you bring him in front of the court, you know that the prosecution is going to win that case, and we're going to put him away. Because here is one thing, and I'm telling you this because the people who me know are criminal will tell you, nobody wants to go to prison, right? And so if the certainty of interdicting, the certainty of arresting, the certainty of charging, prosecution, and the certainty of conviction. Remember, everything starts with an arrest, right? You can't solve a crime without you arrest somebody. You can't prosecute somebody without first of all, an arrest and a charge. And if the certainty of that happening is the first line of a deterrent, our problem is that we are trying to turn the thing over upside down and see if we can work it from the top down, right? So we're not creating the structure through which we can have proper police mechanism, and we take these people in front of the court, right? The Chief Justice, if I remember, last December, addressing a group in Montego Bay, made the argument, right? And I hear you, Gordon. The witnesses are afraid to give evidence because for fear of being killed. Oh, we all know that. That is not only a Jamaica phenomenon. The problem is that because we have not made the kind of investment in developing our policing mechanism, right? We're not even using eyewitness testimony. Is not the most what we call the most reliable testimony, because memories fade. The use of the technology to drive the prosecution, right? If a man shoots somebody and you catch him with a gun, you need the fingerprint is on the gun powder residue. You don't have to see him now, because, and if you put the cameras throughout Jamaica, put the camera eye to see everything, because it's that they catch the guy them in a Rockford in a last year, right? That is the cameras pick them up. So let's put closed circuit cameras around the place, so that when a crime happens, we don't have to rely upon a man to come stand up in a court and say, boy, boss, me see or me never see, right? We need to, don't just give the police better technology, give the country better technology, so we don't have to depend on eyewitness testimony so that people get killed, right? And more importantly, camera is just one aspect of this thing. Using, forensic technology, ballistics technology, use all of these things. Install what we call shot spotters, so that when a gunshot is fired, you have a mechanism that is out there that register where the gunshot is, and it says this gunshot was fired within a radius or so and so, and then the police swarm the area, which is what happens in other jurisdictions. So if we're talking about the technology, let's go all the way, right? It's not enough that we're sending our police to go kill people, because the chances of them killing the wrong people is just as high as them probably eliminating one or two criminals. That is not the solution, right? This business of we spend so much money on policing, but we have the same kind of problems, right? We need to move away from that. All of these squads and all that kind of bullshit, Echo Squad, Task Force, Flying Squad, counter-terrorism, this and all. We have more squad than we have people in our police force. And we achieve the same results, no different. We need to move away from that, right? We need to spend money, right, to change the trajectory of the development of our young people. We have 167 secondary schools on record, and of the 167, only about 49 of these schools are passing out better than 70% of their cohort with 5 CXC subjects each year. The majority, 128 rather, of these schools are reporting passes of less than 15% of cohort, a pass 5 subjects. In fact, more than half of the schools, students leave these schools with 1 or 2 CXC subjects, if any at all. There is no way you can build a society with that kind of results coming out of a secondary school system. We have kids who are going into primary school who can't read, who go into it basically because of the system we now have. We're sending these kids into secondary schools and they come out of the school no better than how they went in. They can't read, they're not numerate, illiterate, right? If that is what we're turning out of our school system, what we're doing is feeding the mill, because the Don man, the area leader, can easily find a parcel of youngsters who don't have nothing going on for them, because them come out of school no better than all them they go in. For most of these kids in Jamaica, school is a daycare center, a holding place, where between 7:30 and 2 o'clock, that's where them there. So we want to change Jamaica. Let's change that, right? That's what we must change. We have to make an investment with our population. We need to increase the funding of the school system, both at the early childhood, primary, and secondary level, right? Because if you don't invest in that, what we're going to end up with are potential criminals. And that is a bird that we shouldn't allow it to fly, right? We need to, the same way we can plug in all kind of money and we big up ourselves with the policeman and with big gun and ray. Let's big up the picnic them by providing them with a better life chances through a better education system and delivery, right? We have to, right? Because without that, we have nothing, right? What we need, as Gordon Tapper say here, it requires commitment of all sectors: education, business, community, government, and communities. Call for a radical change in how we address these issues. And I couldn't agree with you more, God, right? We have to, all of us, have to now stop sit down on your voice. Me, I have made a personal commitment to putting my thoughts on. I'm not afraid, right? I'm not pointing a finger. What I'm interested in, like everybody else, is a better Jamaica, and we can do it. We can do it. Jamaica, we have the talent. The same way our youngsters are world beaters on the track, in the classrooms, in schools, and other academic institutions outside of Jamaica, right? We can do the same things back home in Jamaica, right? This long-term, decades-long experiment with specialized police squads and things has produced a grim reality. All that is resulting from that is more death, less trust, and no real resolution to the island's chronic violence problem, right? A fundamental rethinking is now absolutely necessary, urgently needed, right? And this means that we're gonna have to move away from this business of matching force with similar or greater force. Gun and bullet is not the answer to transforming Jamaica, right? What we need to do is to build a police force that is effective, right? A police force that will earn the trust of the majority, if not all Jamaicans, right? That that police force will earn the trust, so that when people see someone, them don't have a problem to call the police and make a report, right? We need to change this trajectory, build one that says it based on trust, justice, opportunity, and dignity. We have to do that for all of Jamaica, right? Not because you are a politician or you are some high society person where you can afford to hire a security guard to sit on your gate or drive back at you at a daytime when you go about your business. That is not the Jamaica that we need to be developing, right? We have a responsibility, and especially with what going in this America now, we need to make our place the best place, and we can do it by changing the thinking of our people, right? Only when we have built the kind of Jamaica that I've mentioned, one that move away from guns and force towards trust, justice, opportunity, and dignity. Only then can Jamaica hope to build a society where peace is not imposed, but peace is lived and sustained, right? Maybe you want to think about what me think. I appreciate the feedback from some on Facebook. Wanna get some feedback from the people on the other side. This stream is on the Yard Media the Yard Media YouTube channel, and feel free to share it. When the broadcast is over. I am gonna keep at it. God definitely will, because listen, Jamaica is not only for the Andrew Holness and Mark Goldings and the political elite or the business elite. Jamaica is a place for all of it. I see where the Prime Minister is making an appeal, and he made that appeal last Friday at a function that was held in Miramar, where he's talking about bringing back, inviting 1 million Jamaicans. There are more than 2 million Jamaicans who live outside of Jamaica, right? When one considers where we're coming from, our population is receding. We need to encourage Jamaicans like myself who live overseas to come back to Jamaica, right? But we need, in order for that to happen, we have to change the way how we look at that Jamaica, right? We have to build the kind of Jamaica that I'm talking about, one that offer the opportunity to its population, particularly its young people, one that regards and will take care of its older people, one where opportunity, dignity, trust, justice, and respect is a hallmark, or becomes the hallmark of our existence, right? I don't care who is the government, which party form the government, as long as them understand this what me I talk about, because to me are that important. And anybody who can deliver that, you have my nod, right? Listen, I know it's a whole heap to unpack, but I really appreciate those who took the time to join the stream and those who commented. Feel free to message me if you have any thoughts, and we do this again next week. More time.